Evening, everyone. It's 6:30, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Mr. Cusick, would you please perform roll call?
Mrs. Best.
Present.
Mrs. Davis.
Present.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Present.
Ms. Harless.
Present.
Mrs. Hudson.
Present. Thank you. Once again, good evening. It's September. Thank you for joining us for our September 9th Board of Education meeting. My name is Nikki Hudson. I have the privilege of serving as this year's board president. To my far left is Kelly Davis. He's our board vice president, and our board member Amber Epling Skinner, our treasurer TJ Cusick. To my right, Dr. Bowers, our superintendent, board member Stephanie Harless, and board member Jennifer Best. If you'll please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I could get a motion to approve the agenda as published last week.
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments regarding our agenda for the night? Okay, could you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes, thank you. Motion carries. This brings us to our visitor comment section of the agenda. There's a bit of information that we have in the published agenda that I will read here just so that we're all on the same page. The school board and administrative staff encourages and appreciates community interest in meetings of the Board of Education. This section of the agenda is designed to hear the views of community members about their schools and items on the agenda. Each speaker will be asked to address the board at the visitors' podium so that the speaker's remarks may be clearly heard. The speaker should give their name and a street address and limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Consistent with our policy, specifically 9130 on public complaints, we ask that complaints about particular employees be referred to Dr. Bowers and not addressed publicly during session. We remind all speakers that our district values and respects all people as they are, and that our district is committed to creating and maintaining safe spaces for all of our students and community members. We value public input and appreciate when our community members remember our district's values, refraining from using harmful or offensive language, and for sharing your comments in a civil and respectful manner. Please note, it's not our usual practice to respond to remarks during the visitor comment section of our meeting. And with that, C, which is our construction update. Mike Dingle-Dine is joining us again this evening. We're all very excited to hear the progress that has been made, although many of us have been able to see some of it in person, and to see what is on the horizon. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening. So we're at a good time. We're at the start of school, and both our high schools are in use and teaching new children and being what they needed to be. And yet it's a very difficult time because we're in the midst of two very complex construction projects. So I'm going to give you a little update tonight and talk a little bit about the things that are happening and the things we're doing about what's happening. I always start with this slide that our design goals when we started this were personalizing student experience, achieving sustainability in our schools, retaining the existing asset values in our schools, improving site traffic and building life safety. And the bottom one is the one that sort of keeps us up at night right now and gets us up in the morning because we're being mindful of it. And that is how we accommodate continuing operations in buildings when there is construction going on around our education process. So that's pretty much what we'll talk about tonight. There's the three things that we have to be mindful on every day, and they're the things that we don't control at the end of the day. Mother Nature and weather, the global supply chain, which has become a much bigger challenge than it ever used to be since the pandemic. And then the last one is really personal between constructors and architects, and that is the jurisdiction having authority, because they have the ability to exceed what the building code says. They have the ability to ask us anything and cause us to do anything, and we're always on alert for how do we make sure that happens with the least amount of disruption to the projects. So I'm going to start with the natatorium. It's going very well. This is the site. There we go. This is the site. It's a little easier today than it was for the past year. All of the Thomas High School construction is happening behind the green building. The green building is the active Thomas High School. It consists of the brand new 3-story academic wing in the middle, the athletic wing on the left, and the east classroom wing of the old high school on the right. But it is all acting today as one high school in green, and we have accommodated all different kinds of things. The front of the building is no longer staging like it was for the past year. It is band practice and staff parking. I know it's caused some concern to people who see paving in the front grass of Thomas High School, but be assured that all goes back to the grass that was there before when we're done. The natatorium is actually pretty easy. It's in a very tucked in, completely surrounded, controlled site at the corner. You drive by it every day. There's a little bit of lay down happening way up by the field house at the top of the student parking lot. That just gives us room to keep materials that are being delivered out of the way of the construction. So this is the location. We moved the pool a little bit further away from the outdoor pools, a little bit further away from the existing natatorium, and that gave us a huge advantage in terms of how we dug out the site and how we created the foundations for the site. There we go. It's being one behind me. There's the picture overall. You can see the context of the natatorium with the outdoor pools and the new Thomas in the back. This is the view from the road. And last week when I was there, this was what I saw, the masonry up near the top of the wall. We did have a delay. Here's a Mother Nature one. We had our foundations fill with water with a few continuous rainy days. We haven't had those lately, but when we had our foundations dug, we had some rain problems. But we pumped those out. We got past the rain, and the masons got on an accelerated schedule. And when I went by there today, there it is. It's almost topped out. That's the view from the front of the natatorium, and so we're back on schedule thanks to the masons sort of picking up the pace after we had a brief delay with the foundations. This is the back, but the front door of the natatorium, and here's a picture looking at that from that same view. Again, today, this is a week and a half ago, today, those walls are all up to the top of bearing. So we're pretty excited that this is going well. And again, it's contained, and it's an easier project by far for those of us who are working on the two high schools. Our indoor pictures, again, 10 lanes, pretty nice. We're going to have a really good ability to use this facility. All of our activities are parallel to the raised upper spectator area, deep diving, deep swimming lanes, deep water polo lanes, and swim training and swim warm-up lanes that aren't as deep. We have it all in this, and again, it's pretty flexible and pretty adaptable, and it's going to be pretty well noticed in the swimming scene in Columbus when it opens. Some more outdoor pictures. Again, some of these are 2 weeks old, but again, everything's going well, and they're leaving out a little gap for where the pool construction goes. But as you can see, all the existing underground work is done, all the foundations are done, and masonry walls are really up to the bearing point at this point. And we're tucked in tight and behind fencing for this entire operation, so no impact on the rest of the operations of the site. So moving on to the high school. And again, as I said, here's the old picture of the site, the 850-foot wide east to west existing Thomas, going to a new school. This is what we worked on. This is what we got accomplished in this past year. And by the way, Mr. McManus, Matt, incredible job building a 3-story high school right next to an operating high school and doing it in 1 year and getting kids in it first day of school. That is pretty remarkable. So thank you, sir. I'd love to take credit for that, but that was all him. So here's today's school. We have, again, the west is the existing gyms. You might call them gyms, but 1/4 of the auxiliary gym is the band room. These are the kind of things that are happening in this school. And I just met with the 2 band directors today. We were talking about finishes in the new band rooms. And they started out with how thankful they were for what's coming at Thomas High School. And so I thought, these 2 guys have to work in 1/4 of a gym for the next 2 years. And the first thing they said to me is how thankful they were with what's happening. So I thought that was remarkable. The new school connecting, you see across all 3 stories. And then the old east wing we call the LEM. That's where we're using a lot of space for swing space. And obviously still is our current kitchen and active cafeteria for this building. So things are going well. We're connected internally, and the new construction is all in that U shape. So everything is safely tucked behind the building now. The front of the school is a little bit of space and still things happening, but for the most part, we have a very contained site for the next 18 months to 2 years of construction. And here's what's coming next. The blue area you see are the 2 next phases, the cafeteria, the administration, the media center, and then the fine arts wing, all getting completed between now and the end of the project. And then the last thing we will do is tear down the LEM, the last vestige of the old Thomas High School, and build some additional staff parking there. So everything remains on track for our completion date at the end of this. And every day we are mindful of what it takes to turn left or to turn right and be very flexible in terms of what happens to keep kids safe, to keep learning happening, and to keep construction moving. So here's the overall picture. Our biggest challenge when we took this on, not only was it just a very impressive site with a very impressive project need, we wanted to make sure the scale of this building read well from the distance as you drive by on 161, and it does. I'm very pleased with that. But also as you get closer and closer to the building, the scale breaks down and exposes more detail in brick coursing, more detail in window mullions, more detail in stone treatments. And it does that very well. The closer you get, the more you learn about the building. But when you're far away, it still reads very, very well from 161. So as architects, we're very pleased with the way the scale of the building unfolds as you get close and far away. Sometimes you get too close to buildings that read from far away, and they look terrible up close because they're too impressive, they're too overbearing for human scale. And this building doesn't do that at all. You can walk right up to it and touch it, and you feel like it's still human scale as we're working with it. So love this, and love that the grass will be back and all the trees have been protected, and this will look like this high school appeared behind that beautiful front yard, which is one of our big goals from the very beginning. Get inside the school, the 3-story scale impresses you, but it also works at a student level. So we have very bright hallways, very bright windows. We get lots and lots of daylight in this school. Those windows in the front that read all the way from 161, they do great when you get to the classroom scale level. Lots of operable windows and lots of daylight coming in classrooms. These are science labs, very big, very different from what we came from. Teachers have already started making rooms their own. Every room has a different layout of desks. Every teacher is using different things to decorate. Even a teacher putting up lights, it's hard to see here, around the perimeter of the windows. It's great. They're making this their own. That's a great thing for architects to see, is that people move in and they adapt to their new space and make it their own. These are kind of new spaces. These are the teacher work areas. And so teachers not being dedicated to one classroom from beginning to the end of the day, they all have a professional space to come back and work. Lots of teachers unloading this day, I even saw Josh Almerson helping teachers bring boxes in and delivering Amazon boxes to teachers in the school. They were all helping each other. Again, a very thankful group of people moving into a brand new space. Particularly like how the hallways undulate in terms of very wide areas and more narrow areas, but no place do they get narrow like the old Thomas was. The minimum hallway width here is 10 feet. And in this location where there are a few lockers and classroom doors, it's up to 15 feet. This was delivery day for the shop, so the equipment is being unboxed, but it hasn't been put in place yet. This is a computer lab right next door to the wood shop. Again, lots of daylight coming into the building at all different levels. Simple colors, just the reds and blues from the brand guidebook, and then the light colors that make the building read very well. All of our group bathrooms, I've been listening to talks about the future of restrooms in public schools. They all have the universal bathrooms in front, so there's a way to accommodate all folks in all ways in the bathrooms of this school. This is our new card center, a really big space, great environment, very quiet, and lots of supporting spaces around it. These teachers who are in these support rooms off the card center were very excited about the chance they have to work with kids one-on-one. And then the last picture I took that day, because this was the end of the hall, was the weight room. And again, excited kids for something as simple as lifting weights. And I know that's not simple if you're an athlete. Okay, Kilbourne. Again, much harder to do because it's all existing. Much easier because we're not building any new infrastructure, and not very much. But in this case, we decided to make this a continuous project where we would move out of several areas of the building, finish them, move to the next group, finish them, move to the next group. So this is complicated, but again, the school folks and Eric have been very, very cooperative in terms of being improvisational when it comes to figuring out how to do all this. And so we still remain where we want to be on this. I got to go back one. The orange and the blue areas were this past summer's projects. They're all complete, save one thing, which I'll talk about in a minute. And we have moved now into the green and yellow areas. So this phase that we're in now will finish the second floor, and we'll be able to move down to the first floor and do the same thing, three different colors at a time. We'll race through this building, and again, in late 26, we will have an entirely new Kilbourne High School, as well as a new Thomas. Here's the one thing, and it goes back to the web of project and what's the word I want to think of? Yes, thank you. So our flooring did not come in. They confirmed it twice. Russilli confirmed it a third time. We had everything scheduled. We were ready to install furniture and install technology. Jeff Collette was standing by with his wagon of parts ready to put in computers, and we had to go ahead and do that because the flooring just did not come. So we're going to have to pick a time this fall. We're near the break in the middle of the semester, and we're going to have to put the flooring in these rooms. But you'll notice brand new lighting, brand new HVAC, brand new furniture, brand new casework, just not brand new floor in every space. This was an old locker bay that is now new breakout rooms for students. Just a unfortunate situation with the floor. It takes a little of the joy out of getting all this new space, but it is, in fact, something we're doing the best we can to adapt to it. And again, feels great to have all new rooms with all new systems and all new technology. And then the last thing, the jurisdictions having authority slide. Very lucky, go back one. Very lucky that about October of last year, we decided to split this porch construction away from the permit to do the renovation of the rest of the high school. The reason is one of the authorities having jurisdiction is the Army Corps of Engineers, and they typically take 6 to 8 months to give you a permit to disturb a stream, which we have running underneath the existing Kilbourne. So we did separate that permit, and we're about, we think, 2 to 3 weeks away from getting that permit. So we would, if we hadn't split the two buildings into 2 permits, we would have just been waiting to start Kilbourne until now. But unfortunately, there were a lot of people getting their heads together who thought that would be a good idea to split this permit up. So it allowed us to keep going with the project on schedule. And now, right on schedule, we should be able to start this outdoor porch construction because of the permit that's coming. So 3 things I thought of as I was looking through the slides and walking through these buildings is the first part I talked about earlier, being just mindful of things that can come, things that can go wrong, things that can go right, and then not trying to solve them yourself, and that's being transparent. it's really surprising when you come to a steering meeting in this school district and you say, this is our problem, this is our challenge, and you get great ideas from Jeff, from Tim, from just everybody in the room. And so it's really incredible that we aren't solving our problems ourselves, we're working as a team. And then, as I said today with the folks that we're meeting from the music department, they started out the discussion and things that they wanted to try to do differently with thankfulness for what they were getting with these new schools. Same thing with Jeff pushing his cart around Thomas the other day. He was happy about the last minute work that he was challenged to do, and Josh was carrying boxes for teachers, and he said, put the box down and said, I just want to tell you how thankful we are for what we're getting in this district. So I think that's great. I think our success definitely is hinged on the fact that our partners here, the owners, the stakeholders of the Worthington School District have been very, very helpful in being part of the solution, part of being successful. So questions you might have.
Thanks, Mike. Would someone like to give us, to start us off? I'll open it up. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you. We've been looking forward to this presentation and,
Good.
of course, watching everything as it goes. I love that you talked about working as a team, because as we talk to administrators and staff, we know everybody's been part of it. So we really like that our staff was allowed to be part of it. I think it's been really helpful. It seems that everything's on schedule somewhat now.
It all changes every day. But we're still on schedule for the end dates, and we're figuring out things. And obviously, the flooring was a very disappointing piece of schedule that didn't work, but it didn't stop us from opening school and using those rooms. So that part is fortunate, but like I said, it takes a little joy out of it to see new space with an old floor under it. But
with no floor
we'll get there in a few weeks.
It'll be there, and
Yep.
it'll be great. On Thomas, the east wing of classrooms that's going to come down, I thought, when is it going to come down? I thought it was sooner, and now it sounds like later.
So the connector, the music wing, the auditorium, they're coming down now. We needed that because we needed the cafeteria until the new cafeteria is finished. So it can come down before the absolute finish of everything that's new. But I think we will target it for that last quarter of the year, where we're going to finish the parking lot where the teacher parking is, and tear down that all at once. Again, because it has to be an activity that happens, hopefully, with the least disruption to school as possible. So I don't know.
Because it's being used now.
Yes.
For the
It's
cafeteria
temporary swing space
and
now.
classrooms and,
Yes, the cafeteria is being housed there and some classrooms right now, and the goal has always been, once the new cafeteria and administration wing gets built prior to the theater, that building will come down then at that point. So we'll swing into the new space while the theater's still getting built, and then that building will come down.
What is the, I'm just going to jump in and say,
Yeah.
what is the anticipated date of
It's-
that?
it's-
I'm asking this honestly, I will say selfishly and for our community, because this is a long project. So I don't even remember the exact anticipated date for that portion of the contract.
It's sometime around mid-fall, early winter of next year.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer,
Okay.
can I jump in real quick? Just so when we talk about the east end, which some people are calling the LEM, right? We do have our business teachers, so
in
business classes are in there right now. Art teachers are still in the same art rooms they've always been in, but those art rooms are being utilized. Our choir class is in that area. We have a temporary library that's housed in what was a science classroom in that area. We have several special ed classrooms in that area. We have a temporary kitchen. So we took a classroom, what was a social studies classroom, and it's now the kitchen. So that was remade into a kitchen because the kitchen was demolished, but the cafeteria was open. The nurse's office is in that area. And then several of our administrative offices and the counselors are still in their original counselor space. So I just want to share that because there is a lot.
It's a
We're
lot.
calling it swing space, but it is a significant portion of daily operations is in that piece and will need to be until the rest of the building is fully functional.
The silver lining is that when you walk through the new building and then you walk through the older portion of the building, it really helps you. I mean, it's hard not to appreciate the new building, but it absolutely
Really?
emphasizes what we're getting through this process.
Great, thank you. I have one
Okay.
more question. The road in front of Thomas
Mm-hmm.
Worthington with the parallel parking, what direction does it go and where does the traffic end up?
It goes from the bus turnaround drive currently, it goes one way toward McConnell, Evening Street, and it goes out to the same position to McConnell, the back of McConnell, that the old drive did. So they converge back there behind the tennis courts and end up on Evening Street. So that is intended for visitors and quick drop-off during the day. It is not intended for heavy traffic for the school. And again, I will let Josh figure out some of the, what you learn in place and what you learn from what you're doing. But it's a one-way street and it's for visitor parking and it goes out to Evening Street.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now. Thank you very much for being here.
Sure.
All of you, thank you.
Can I go next, Stephanie?
I'll echo my thanks. My kids are little. They won't be there for a while, but I drive by it every day. I do want to touch on something that you said earlier about just kind of how you think about the space in general. I was a little nervous in thinking about this project, which was prior to me being on the board. Just in terms of building a whole new structure is new. It can be sterile. It can feel like a little bit foreign, right? And I haven't had a chance to tour that space, but when you drive by, it feels really good to me, like just looking at it, and it feels like it's, and even the pictures that you showed from inside with the teachers making it their own, which is certainly incredibly important, but also having a space where the students feel safe and at home, and it feels to me that we are going in that direction. So thank you for that. I know that's a very difficult task. So I just have a couple questions. You had a slide showing bathrooms with,
Yes.
I forget what you called the
Universal bathrooms.
universal bathrooms up front. My question is, are all of the bathrooms set up that way, or are there differences depending on where you are?
They're all set up that way. There are
Okay.
individual universal bathrooms in front of every large group restroom. And when you say universal, that's single use, that's unisex, that's staff, that's student, that's parent with a child of the opposite sex who needs to change a diaper. It's everything. That's why they're called universal bathrooms. So there are still large group bathrooms for, the volume, but there are plenty. And I'm going to say there's more than 15 in this building that are universal bathrooms. So a huge improvement in terms of numbers.
Okay, so once this is complete in the future, that will be represented across all the.
Correctly. Even the locker rooms are going to get universal bathrooms in there as well. So
Okay.
there's a huge improvement across the board
Okay.
for kids who feel, awkward going to the restroom and don't have a private space.
Okay,
They will have
and
that.
they're accessible as well.
Correct, 100%. I forgot to mention that. A universal bathroom is 100% ADA accessible.
Okay, so we're gonna have ADA compliant bathrooms
Yep.
everywhere. Okay, thank you. And I think I have one question that you didn't touch on this. It's just, I have been asked this. What is the capacity of the new auditorium? Do you know that? If not, it's okay.
633 seats, I believe. Yeah, very close to the old one.
Okay,
Yeah. And the same exact as, by the way, as Kilbourne. Maybe not quite as big as the old Thomas, but it's the same size as the current Kilbourne. And so those will both be 600 to 650 people.
We'll get you an answer on that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that's correct, guys.
Okay, is it more?
So, yeah, we'll get an exact
Maybe it's
answer.
733?
okay.
Okay, we will get you an answer.
It's not
Thank
a
you.
fire drill, so
Yeah.
you're here, so
Yeah, I know.
you get it. And then I know you're on schedule today, and you cannot see into the future, even with a crystal ball. Are there things that are significant, that are legitimately keeping you up at night, or?
Well, we're out of the ground everywhere, even the foundations at Kilbourne. So things that like weather, a big thing. And because we have later phases being spread out over 2.5 years, our shop drawings are in, our materials are ordered. There still could be a failure.
Sure.
The bridge gets hit by a ship in the Baltimore Harbor and we don't get flooring on time.
Sure.
Those are the kind of things we don't control. But that, I think there's the possibilities and the risks go down significantly. Once you're past the first third of construction, you're through 2/3 of the risk, they say.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Kelly, would you like to go next?
Well, I just want to say thank you. Just every time you come, I learn more. It's a big project, and you guys are living it. And so I know you know a lot, but sometimes it's hard to keep up with what space is what. I was able to tour Thomas and Kilbourne.
Good.
But not Kilbourne wasn't as complete as it is right now. And it is pretty seamless to go from the new portion of the building. My student has to go to that older portion of the building twice in the day. So I really appreciate that. This is all filler because I don't really have a lot of questions. Jennifer and Stephanie kind of touched on things I was asking about regarding bathrooms. You gave a timeline. Yeah, so I don't, I thank you for the information. I thank you for the teamwork that, I think obviously our administrators.
And yeah, we thank you for the teamwork because it's been remarkable.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I guess just feedback. Are you getting a lot of feedback from students, teachers, administrators, positive or
Right. Well,
need improvement?
I'm the guy they sat down with when we started, so I have a different relationship with people that are internal. So like I say, I ran into Josh and to Jeff the other day, and they were working hard and smiling, and Josh put the box down to say how thankful he was. I thought, wow, that's a big deal. But I worked with them, even though it was at Kilbourne with Josh. So when I see people who I've never met, it's different, and I listen carefully to what they have to say, and they say, oh my God, you drive on 161 and you can't believe that's there. So that I take a lot of pride in as an architect, because that's what we were hoping for. And that's what you challenged us to do, to make it a statement on, like it has always been. Thomas has always been a big deal when you drive by it. So we hope that that's true. But we'll hear more, and we'll hear good and bad, who thought of this when they decided to do this. And, I've 40 years, I've heard it. So but it's still rewarding, and I still am hearing more good than not good. So
Yeah, well, that's good. That's all I have.
Thanks. Amber?
I will echo the thank you and all of the hard work that everyone is doing with this project. Driving by, it really is incredible to just see the transformation and happening in real time. I think the only questions that I was kind of curious about, and maybe you said this, I'll start with this one, forgive me if I missed it. Did you say when the flooring was coming in at Kilbourne, or you just?
we think the end of September, the end of this
Okay.
month.
Yeah.
So when we decide to install it and how, is it night times after school, because we have to move furniture out and then move furniture back. I don't know that answer yet, but I do believe we're expecting delivery this week.
Okay, so
There's the man.
It might not be attractive, but it's still
Right,
safe. There's
right.
still,
Absolutely.
students are still using
No,
the space,
no,
the teachers.
and the fire department would say no if it
Yeah.
weren't.
Okay. And going along with that too, just talking about safety, you have an active construction site around a bunch of curious teenagers who
Yep.
like to explore sometimes. I mean, how are you making sure that everything stays safe for not only the students, but the community and,
I'm Matt, I'm the project manager at Thomas.
This keeps him up at night.
We,
So.
we live it every day.
yeah.
Probably the best thing that we have is working with the administrators or in the building leaders. We meet with the principals once a week on a scheduled, structured meeting. The other thing that happens is we actually have interaction with Josh and Brett every day, the two principals and assistant principal. Great feedback that we get. Usually it's a text message or a phone call. We hit it immediately. A lot of the times we pretty much know what we're looking for. Went through all the 4 middle schools, so
Right.
we try to think, first of all, safety as far as we have to keep people away from, public, staff, and students. But more importantly, what we think about, even just as a contractor and as a design team, is what happens in lockdown. We're constantly thinking about lockdown. We're constantly thinking about what happens in the event of communication has to go out. So we're constantly thinking of that part of the safety as well. So going back on feedback, I had a lot of teachers that gave some really good feedback to us in the past couple of weeks. That again stopped me or stopped our staff and thanked them. There's a lot of good feedback hitting us as far as giving comments back and forth of a couple. We're going through a punch list item or a punch list process. That does take a little bit, but I think we've had really good feedback. And my feedback to you is that building staff, leadership, custodial, everybody across the board, everybody from IT and Jeff's team, everybody came and worked together. And I commend everybody for who helped us in that building, because it wasn't just the contractors and design team. So you have a great staff and they helped us greatly. Appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing that feedback.
Pete Scully told me, you can teach kids how to behave in 30 days. You can never teach parents how to behave. So he always said, it just takes me 30 days and I got the kids where I need them. But parents, they're a wild card forever.
Well, and also keeping, the construction crew safe
Right.
too. That's obviously a
Right.
huge concern. that
Right.
you all are
And
mindful of
they
that.
also know how to behave on public sites.
Oh, good. That's
They-
good to know. The only other thing I was curious about, and I've just heard this from a community member, is football games, now that we have all the things that are happening on site, because as we were looking at these, drawings, it's hard to kind of imagine the
Right.
real world impact, but now we have sports are back, the students are back. It sounds like there's maybe a little bit of, some delays and things, people getting to
Right.
and from places, but
It's a little better now that we've got everything construction-wise in the back. We've lost the staff parking lot back there and the student drop-off, but most of the student lot is available except for the last row where we have some pool material stored. So I think we'll be better this year than last year this time, but it's still going to be a challenge till we're done.
right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. I'll just end with a huge amount of gratitude for getting us to a place where we opened on time. That was
huge.
It was huge, absolutely. And knowing that you guys, navigated approvals and navigated deliveries and navigated a lot during that time. And it does not go unnoticed. And we're incredibly grateful that our students are in the building and learning and taking advantage of the beautiful building that you've helped us create. So thank you very much. I would love to just go back to timelines for a hot second, just
Okay.
because I think that I'm not the only one at this point. Like, I can go back through my notes, but if we can just align on estimated dates again. So we're talking about mid-fall to winter, maybe basically like the latter end of 25, so next year.
Correct.
That is when we anticipate what being completed at each of the schools.
Stay close or come up here. Yeah,
That's basically, go back here.
you got it.
So it's gonna be, we call it Area C. It's a line pretty much a line right through here. This is the cafeteria, this is the kitchen right through here. And basically, there's instructional and everything that is on the student commons, that's on the first floor. The second floor is the media center. So that will turn over next fall,
Awesome.
right through here. We are still working as soon as we start our foundations over here, we're going into these foundations as well. There are some services that come out of this area that help feed this, so this is you're gonna see this progress along with that connector ahead of everything else. And then we're actually gonna finish our way, complete this, going in this direction, doing this in this area last. So that is the last area right here, which is basically the auditorium, everything to do with sciences, arts and music, arts and music over here will all turn over in the last phase. And that is towards the end of 26.
Okay, excellent. So the end of 25 at Thomas is more the media center, the common areas, the cafeteria, and then at the end of 26, essentially at the end of the project, will be the arts, the music, and the auditorium.
Right. And then
Perfect.
the very last part is that
The demolition.
that east area where we're gonna do the parking, the tiered parking on the east side towards the mat, and the tennis courts.
Thanks, Matt.
Well, and Matt,
And then-
we
go ahead.
will also renovate our gyms.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
that's
Right,
correct.
so-
Summer of 25, we do the main gym, and the summer of 26, we do the auxiliary gym.
Okay.
So we constantly have gyms open and available to all the children and activities.
Okay, thank you. And then I know that the timeline at Kilbourne has shifted, right? And so where it was,
not
shifted in that
far.
it's more consolidated essentially.
Correct. It's
Yes.
continuous.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
after we finish upstairs this fall, green, 5 and 6, light blue, that's next. That'll be in the spring, summer. And then we go 7, cafeteria, fine arts, the last yellow classroom area. And then 8 is the gyms, the auditorium, And then where the office was becomes the new media center because we've had moved into the new office in 5 in the front student services area. So that comes last. So those are, again, all in about 3 to 4 month phases until late 26.
Mike, I think it'd be helpful if, after this meeting, if you could get us a document that
Sure.
would say these spaces, and we're not holding you to tight dates, but in this estimated time, and this estimated time, and then same thing at Worthington Kilburn, because you just went through that. I think you were clear, but I think I missed 80% of it.
Okay.
I was
So-
thinking I could go back and watch the video too, so thank you.
So I think that'd be helpful. If
we'll get
each
you a
board member
roadmap
had
for-
that,
for
when
both
people
buildings.
said, hey, when are the gyms at Worthington Kilburn? They could say,
Exactly.
hey, summer of X.
You got it.
And that would help all of us. I
Yeah,
think.
Yeah.
it really would.
These are harder
Thanks.
to remember all the dates because there's so many different phases here, so we'll get to that. We think that might be it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I think that's
And
great. Go
then
ahead.
we believe that the natatorium should be open
you,
to
yeah.
kids about such time.
End of December.
25.
So end
year
of
from this
December
December.
2025, anyone listening who couldn't hear that.
Correct. There's a sign out there that says April. That's not totally accurate. We'll be enclosed in by April, but we won't be finished with the auditorium until fall, and then we have to tear down the old natatorium, and finish the outside site work. But it should all be done in 25.
But open to, I think Trent was focusing
Yeah.
on the ability for our
So
athletes to
The question
utilize
is,
that space.
can we have water, chlorinated water running and filters running in the pool at some earlier time in
Well, we know we'll
25?
have to. I mean, like, if you think about it, before you can tear the old natatorium,
Right.
you have to
Yeah.
open the new
We have to flip
natatorium.
them.
So,
New building like August of 25. Yeah, that's correct. Demolition and parking.
Okay, in the fall.
so this
So the-
time next year,
Right.
athletes swimming in the new natatorium. Project
Okay.
will still continue with tear down and then
Correct.
construction and parking lot. Okay.
Excellent.
We'll send that to you, Will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It needs the same exact map.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you guys very much.
Sure.
Incredible work, and I'm grateful to be able to continue working with you. Yeah, you guys honestly do deserve a round of applause. We're open and running at Thomas. All right, that brings us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. It's obviously hard to follow the construction report. But so our mission in Worthington Schools is to empower a community of learners who will change the world. We attempt to do that through our 4 vision statements, and so this report is divided in those vision statements. So our first vision statements, we will engage each student with diverse opportunities to maximize every student's potential. We're into the month of September, and so our schools will recognize Patriot Day and National Day of Service and Remembrance on September 11th, which is this Wednesday, and then Constitution and Citizenship Day on September 17th. Patriot Day commemorates the lives that were lost and the heroes who risked their lives, saving others during the 9/11 attacks. Constitution Day recognizes the adoption of the United States Constitution and those who have become U.S. citizens. And so those are recognized in all of our schools over the next 2 weeks. The second vision statements, we will provide a safe environment where every student can grow intellectually, physically, socially, and emotionally. Last week, there was another senseless and tragic school shooting in the United States. In reading articles about the tragedy, a company called Centegix was being credited for quick response by law enforcement. Last spring, Worthington Schools entered into a contract with Centegix and we're currently piloting their system at Brookside, Worthington Estates, Perry Middle School, Phoenix Middle School, and Worthington Academy. The Centegix system is designed to alert safety services to exact locations in the school to save critical time, and it's designed to empower teachers. So that's something we're piloting. We'll make a decision on whether we believe that district-wide implementation makes sense after we talk with staff members, principals, probably some families later this fall. But beyond Centegix, safety is always at the forefront of our thinking. We want to say thank you to our elementary counselors for planning Start With Hello Week in conjunction with the Sandy Hook Promise. This week will take place September 16th through 20th, so that's coming up here, at each of our elementary schools. We're prioritizing being seen, heard, and valued, and this week helps to place the spotlight on the importance of recognizing and knowing classmates and adults in our schools. We do have a safety communication coming out tomorrow as a blog post, so we'd like our community to look for that. And we also would say to visit the safety page on our district website for safety information that is there and ready for the community. Our third vision statements will provide consistent communication and promote dialogue with our community. Earlier this year, Governor DeWine signed legislation on cell phone use in schools during school hours. School districts have until July 2025 to adopt a policy on cell phones. Before a policy is adopted in Worthington schools, we're seeking feedback from staff, students, and families. So tomorrow morning, all Worthington staff members and all Worthington families, school district families, will receive surveys on this topic. High school students will take the survey on September 11th. So we're surveying all Worthington staff members, all parents and guardians in the school district, and then high school 9th through 12th grade students. And so we'll have that feedback by next week. We'll present that feedback at the October 14th board meeting. And the question on the table is, what are your thoughts, concerns, or recommendations, or what thoughts, concerns, or recommendations do you have regarding students' use of cell phones or smartwatches during the school day? And so we're using a survey tool called Thought Exchange, and families should look for that tomorrow morning. And then fourth, we'll be responsible and transparent with our community's resources. As part of our 2022 bond issue, the school district, as you just heard, is currently building and when complete, will own the new natatorium. Separate from that project, but adjoining the natatorium project, the city of Worthington is asking taxpayers to fund a new outdoor pool facility. The current outdoor facility sits on school district property, but since the 1950s has been run by a community nonprofit. As part of this tax issue, Worthington Schools has proposed selling the land the outdoor pool is on to the city for $1. This would allow the city to finance their bonds in the most beneficial way. As part of that agreement, if the land was no longer used for an outdoor pool, it would revert back to the school district. So we see this as a win-win agreement. The land is currently used for an outdoor pool. We're building the new natatorium adjacent for efficiencies, and we designed the new high school with the location of the pool in mind. If for some reason the community does not support a pool, the district would then get that land back. Mr. President Hudson, that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Bowers. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the updates?
Can I ask one thing really quick, Trent? You were talking about the cell phone surveys. Are the questions the same for all of the different stakeholders?
So they're the same questions worded just differently for the stakeholder group. Okay. So the staff member questions worded a little bit differently than the parent question or than the student question, but they are the same questions. So I think there are 9 survey questions, then the 1 open-ended question. And the way Thought Exchange works is people will see the open-ended responses and have an opportunity to kind of rate them up or down. So we see which of those open-ended responses kind of gets the most support from those who are taking the survey versus the least support.
Gotcha. And high school students, not middle school?
That's correct. Our policy at the middle school right now is that cell phones remain in lockers.
That's true.
And so to me, it's really a high school question. I mean, obviously, it's possible the board would want to go in the other direction and open up more cell phone use at the middle school. I don't foresee that, right? So our structure was high school has a little more latitude with cell phone, and so we want to get high school student perspective of how do you use those cell phones? What would be your concerns if there were tighter cell phone restrictions, or maybe you have no concerns. Maybe you'd feel better if that was the case.
No, thank you.
I have a follow-up question on that. Does the survey include a written summary of the existing policy?
It does, yeah. So there's a link that shows, so there's a little introductory paragraph that basically what I read here, that Governor DeWine signed legislation and we want to get feedback before that. And then there's a link to the current cell phone policy that says what we do at each level currently.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
And I mean, one of the things we hadn't talked about, because it's practice-based, meaning our principals and our teachers have had authority with it. Our high schools did tighten up cell phone practice this year. So
some of us have heard.
Yeah, I heard the same thing at home. But yes, so I mean, cell phones are not supposed to be out in classrooms And that's standard in all of our high school classrooms this year. High school students still have some autonomy outside of those high school classrooms, but that is a little tighter than where we were a year ago. A year ago, we were a red, yellow, green system where teachers had the autonomy to say, obviously red means no, green means good, yellow, we're all confused on exactly what that means. That has been tightened up a bit this year. And that was something that came from our principals talking with Emily and with our teachers. And so that's, but that is clear in this is where we are. I would assume most high school parents have heard that from our students.
That's honestly why I asked if the policy was going to be accessible, because I could imagine different interpretations of what has happened being shared with parents. And so I think it's good to have it in writing and accessible that way.
Yeah, and I should have said, my thought, obviously we'll work with the board policy committee, but was that we would get the feedback now, and this gives us plenty of time to present the feedback. Here's what our community said, and then schedule policy meetings throughout the winter time before we create something that goes into effect for next school year.
Great.
I just have one quick thing. I just wanted to, thanks for the update on Centegix. We have talked about it. I don't think any of us ever wanted to hear about it in application, but I also wanted to thank you and your staff for proactively thinking about safety, which goes well beyond that. And we all have kids at different age levels, and we're in different buildings, and we see what teachers and the staff is doing. And I know we all think about it. Everybody in this room thinks about it every day, and it just becomes more acute. We're more acutely aware of it when something happens. But I appreciate, like I said, your staff and all of the teachers that live it day in and day out. I know I feel safe when my kids go to school. I hope all families do. And so I really appreciate that everybody's thinking about it proactively and thinking about what safety is for all of our kids and what that looks like. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments regarding Dr. Bauer's update? All right, thank you. Mr. Cusick, would you mind sharing the treasurer's report?
Certainly. The monthly report for August is available on our website, and I will indicate that this is one of 2 months out of the year, August and February, where we receive the bulk of our revenue. That's property tax settlement. And so it's important milestones that we kind of see where the dust settles. And I will indicate that actual collections compared to what we projected are a bit of a mixed bag. So they are in the yellow cell phone category, so to speak, I guess you could say. So we typically allow for about 1.5% for delinquency, unpaid taxes. What we're seeing when this settled was about double that, about 3% delinquency. So still very fortunate to reside where we do. 3% is a lot of our peers would be envious of that, but it still is double where we thought we'd be. So we were at about $5.5 million compared to about $3 million. So the good news is residential collections came in above projections and kind of washed some of that, but our commercial property was what drove our delinquency. And I did see some indications that is countywide, and so we're not alone in that. We're hopeful one particular large parcel makes its second half payment, and we will be back in good graces, and that's not indicative of any underlying trend or economic slowdown, but you will likely see some pullback on future revenue assumptions when we get into revising the 5-year forecast this fall. Our insurance committee had a very productive and I will say data intense meeting last week. In summary, we were facing double-digit increases to health insurance. We are able to spend down some of our reserves, and you'll see a recommended 6% increase on the next board agenda, and we'll talk more about that as that is on the agenda, but I did want to give that update as they met last week, and we're looking at a 6% increase. That is all.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? You stole a little bit of my thunder, but I don't mind.
Apologize.
I'm just kidding. Board committee reports and announcements. I'll just go ahead and kick us off. The only committee meeting I've had since our last meeting was the insurance committee. As TJ shared, we are anticipating a 6% increase, but that does actually utilize a portion of the reserve. So it's being very reasonable, not when we're looking at, a much larger increase, being very responsible about utilizing the reserve and making it as reasonable as possible of increase. And in addition to that, an increase in dental. And so I know that the insurance committee is going to look at, as TJ shared in his last update, whether or not we need to move to a self-funded, or it would be beneficial to move to a self-funded structure for that as well. And that's the only committee update that I had. So I will, Kelly, do you want to go next? Okay.
I actually don't have any committees. I didn't have any committee meetings between last meeting and this meeting. Just excited that all of our students are back in school. Thomas is back, Sutter's back. Things are moving. You see footballs being tossed around, the band here and that. So it's always nice. The ease of summer is nice, but it's always nice to have our students back and doing good things. I've seen a lot of portrait of a learner activities happening in classrooms, so I love that. It's just, you go through a big project, right? And to see that come to fruition and see that come alive and be in action has been really good to see. Went to the chamber lunch, I think that was last week. I'll let Stephanie talk a little bit more about that though. Went to the Worthington game. Rondell and I were able to attend that game, and it was hot. And I appreciate our administrators, our principals, and our staff making sure that our players, our band members, our cheerleaders, and our attendees were safe during that time, making sure that they were keeping an eye on the weather. It was smooth from my perspective. It seemed very smooth and very well organized. People got on and off the field okay. I exited the parking lot. I was waiting to wait, and I did not wait at all. So I was really impressed with that. I don't know if we left. We didn't leave like super early either. Anyways, it was really smooth. I appreciate that. Trent mentioned Start with Hello Week. I love Start with Hello Week. Every week should be Start with Hello Week. And so I just want to give a little rundown of what they're doing each day. So Monday is Make Someone Smile Day. So if you guys want to participate, participate at home. And then Tuesday is 2 Challenge Tuesdays so sitting with someone new, meeting someone new. Maybe if you have lunch with people, you can meet with someone new. Wednesday is World Ways to Say Hello Wednesday. So just thinking about our diversity in our district and our EL students, and just I think that's great. Trusted Adult Thursday, which I think is amazing, making sure that each student has someone in our building that they can go to if they need to, and Feel Good Friday, giving someone a compliment. So I love that we do that. It's a national program that gets put on every year. We also, in the elementary update, and I know you guys can all read this yourselves, but I just want to put a plug for the Win Peace Ambassadors program. Those dates were sent in Rob's email. So if you click on that, you can see what dates are available. And I just encourage you to go if you can. Like, I understand schedules are full, but if you have a chance throughout this year or next year, and I mean this as in 24 and then 25, to attend one of those events, that would be a great thing. And I share these two things because I appreciate what our district does to help the all-around child, right? We deal with academics, which is great. I mean, obviously that's an emphasis, but there's more to that, and it's the whole package. And so that's why I share those kind of things, and I get excited about them. My last thing is just a reminder, if you haven't already signed up to register for the OSBA Central Region Fall Conference, which is next Wednesday, the 18th, and you can go. Let TJ, Jen, and Nikki know that you want to register. The registration deadline is Wednesday. That's all I have.
Excellent. Thanks, Kelly. Some good news to hear that you were not stuck in the parking lots. Amber, anything on your end?
Not really. I haven't had any board meetings yet. We have them scheduled, though. We have a communications committee on September 23rd and key communicators September 26th. Treasurer's Advisory Committee is coming up soon after that. So getting busy.
Excellent.
All the kids are back to school and all the activities are full swing. So, yeah, not much of an update from me.
It's all good. We'll all have more updates next time. Stephanie, how about on your end?
Mostly just the chamber update that Kelly just lobbed over.
She punted that to you.
She did. She punted. So I always enjoy going to the chamber lunches. It's a good opportunity to network, and they always have really interesting presentations. And this time, they had representatives from CODA to talk about Link Us. So this is informative. I'm not endorsing anything, but it will be on the ballot, and it's an increase in sales tax. But the majority of the presentation talked about just public transit in general. So it wasn't just, that issue specifically, and talking about, the idea that Central Ohio in general has a lack of public transit. I don't think that is not news to anybody. And so just like what an increase in transportation or public transit would bring to our community. And that includes our entire school district, right? Because you have public transit, you have better housing opportunities, better industry opportunities, better economic growth. And certainly we have a significant amount of projected growth in Central Ohio over the next, decades to come. So it was just really good to hear. And it ties directly with Zone In that Columbus is also working on in phases that doesn't touch our district yet, but phase 2 possibly will. So everything is interconnected. So a lot of exciting things coming up that will impact our district that are, worth keeping an eye on. Other than that, I'm also excited that school is back. And I'll echo, if you can go to the Peace Ambassadors, it's super fun. The kids are really excited. And Kelly and I are going to the school law seminar this week, so we'll have more to talk about, probably a lot to talk about the next time. So that's it for me.
Okay. I have not had any committee meetings, but I will talk a little bit about my duty as library trustee, especially for our new board members, because our Worthington Library is our school district library, as you know, so we are responsible for confirming their trustee selection each year. They have 7 trustees for a 7-year term, so every year they have one new trustee. They've started their process of looking for this new person. And if any of you know of anyone that would love to be a library trustee and be part of that group, they can go to the library website and get all kinds of information about that. But I will be in touch with their board this fall and kind of stay in touch with their application process and eventually get back with you all late October, early November on kind of who they've selected and why before it comes on our agenda late November. So,
Excellent.
coming up.
Thanks, Jennifer. I do have one additional thing, because given that everyone's calendars are filling up with committee meetings and whatnot, if you haven't already done so, if you'll please send me your feedback on if you have any preferences regarding the PTAC meetings and then also the student feedback sessions. I would really like to wrap those up and finalize those so that we can all get them on our calendars. The student feedback sessions don't start until October 22nd, but the PTAC's first meeting is September 18th. So just if you can send me that by, let's say by Thursday, if that's reasonable, then I'll circulate everyone's preference. I'll consolidate everyone's preferences and circulate a schedule on Friday.
I sent you mine today.
I saw that. Thank
Okay.
you. It was
You're
a good
welcome.
reminder. Thanks.
That makes me feel better. I'm sorry. It's me.
It's all good. No, everyone. Yeah, it's not just you. It's all good. We all are juggling many things. Okay, let me go back to our agenda. That brings us to you, Mr. Cusick. Actions recommended by the treasurer.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the August 26th meeting as presented in enclosure E1, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments regarding our minutes? Seeing none, would you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Abstain.
Motion carries. And Dr. Bowers.
Yeah, normally TJ has 2 things.
I know, I
Threw
paused.
me for a second.
Me
I was
too.
like,
Wake up.
yeah. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda. That's items F2 through F7 on your agenda. Approval of the consent agenda, please, F2 through F7.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, would you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes,
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item G1. Item G1 is the acceptance of the donations that are listed on the agenda. Item G1, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments regarding donations? Seeing none, would you please call for the vote?
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes,
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item G2. Item G2 is to approve the continued enrollment of 2 senior students whose guardians have moved from the Worthington School District. Item G2, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Would you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes,
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item G3. Item G3 is an impractical busing recommendation to approve the resolution confirming the impracticality of busing a newly enrolled students, as declared by myself, the superintendent, to the Arts and College Preparatory Academy.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, would you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item G4. Item G4 is a resolution to approve the participation in the bus bid process through Meta Solutions per the attached resolution. Item G4, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I just appreciate the memo with the explanation as to why we signed this resolution and come into this agreement. So thank you for sending that to us.
Would you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes,
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
motion carries. Thank you. That brings us to requests, questions, concerns from the board. I will say I only have one that's related to the calendar, so I can hold off personally until the calendar. Does anyone else have anything else we'd like to discuss?
So is Dr. Bowers going to give us the answers to his questions from this morning?
I will do that real quick. And so obviously not everybody knows what we're talking about, but we have some questions and I will go through them. So how many students were enrolled so far this year? 10,730. Number of work orders that were completed through June and August by our facilities maintenance staff, that was 479 work orders. Number of ideas pitched for the convocation commercials. So you remember there were 4 commercials.
Yes.
There were 18 different ideas that were pitched for those commercials. So we have some more to make at some point. Number of teachers that attended professional development over the summer, 891 different
impressive.
teachers attended some different PD. Number of Chromebooks distributed and set up this summer was 14,000. Number of reams of white paper used in the month of August. Please don't share this with Amy Lloyd, 3,600. Number of checks processed, so checks processed and paid between June and August. There were 8,770 checks processed by TJ's office. Number of days from now until the Thomas Worthington High School project is complete. These guys would
Well, I was like, was this going to be edited?
They would
as
want
a
it to be an
result?
estimate, but 694, so a little over 2 years. Number of summer Welcome Center enrollments, the number of people that enrolled students this summer, 430 Welcome Center enrollments. Number of help tickets, when we say help tickets, that's our technology team processing help tickets. They processed 3,000 help tickets in August alone. Number of employees hired for the 24-25 school year, so this includes administrators, certified, classified coaches, so coaches, and PGTs, so those are our permanent guest teachers, so 293. And then number of summer IEP or ETRs completed. So that was the number 70. 70 of those were completed. So that's just to say a lot goes on throughout the summer. And that was something that we did here at the Worthington Education Center just to kind of recognize the team that works here all summer and the different roles that everybody plays. And so just thought I would share that with the board. And Jennifer, I would have forgotten to give that.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer.
I'm just
It's
glad
I was
that
just curious because most of mine were guesses. I would have failed, but
I'm glad this wasn't graded.
yes.
Yeah, I don't think that was the point. Absolutely.
So I have to give a little plug to the convocation commercials. I coach a running group. It's big, and in my group, there's, I don't know, on any given Saturday, 50 or more people that run with us. And behind me, I hear them, two people talking about one of the commercials from convocation.
That's
I turn
awesome.
around, and I mean, they teach in the district. I don't know everybody in my group, and it was funny. So it had an impact.
Awesome. And I just want to point out that they were behind you because you were leading. I'm
She
just
was
saying.
leading.
I was
I'm just
leading.
saying.
That's great. Thank you very much. Anything else? I just wanted to touch on, so we have our September 23rd regular board meeting. Oh my gosh, you guys, is our work session on the 27th or the 20th? It is, okay, it is the 27th. Like for a hot second, I was going back to that 20th and I was like, do we have it wrong on here again? Okay, good. So for the work session, we had talked at our last board meeting, and Jennifer, I apologize for not following up with you about this. We had talked about focusing our time or a portion of our time on what are the things that we as a school board want to be intentional about in the coming school year, and thinking about that in the context of our district goals. Understanding that we have essentially, 3 lanes, right? We have policy, we have financial, and we have advocacy. So in thinking about those 3 lanes, are there things that we are aiming to do as a district that we as a board can get out in front of and be intentional about? Or, is there potential pending legislation at the State House that we feel like is going to be detrimental to the district? It gives us an opportunity to talk about, how do we feel about that? If something were to pass, would we want to provide a statement or pass a resolution about it? Just thinking about our role in those 3 lanes in the context of our goals that we have set for this year. So I will again state if there's anything in particular that you want to share that you want to make sure that we address during that time, probably would be good just to make a consolidated list so that we make the most of our time together, and feel free to send that to me. In addition to that, I had an idea tonight, which is we could, during our work sessions, choose to pick one of our vision statements and just talk about how we feel like we're doing related to that vision statement. And honestly, this came up because, Dr. Bowers you use them always to do your superintendent's report. And obviously we've had a lot of discussion from our community around what I would put into number 2, a safe environment, both emotionally and physically. So maybe we take a little bit of time to talk about that particular vision statement during our work session. And that's just an idea. You guys can say, no, Nikki, I don't feel like we need to do that. Or, yes, this sounds like, a good time to take a moment and look at one of our vision statements and see what kind of work we're doing around that. So if I'll just stop talking and let you guys chime in. Are we still aligned with that as a plan, the first part of it as a plan for our work session?
Yes, and I know I need to send you things.
You're not the only one.
No, I know. It's like been
request to
processing
everyone.
right in the brain, and it has to all get distilled into something.
You're fine, but I feel like if we
cohesive, but-
have a few things down on paper.
No.
we'll be so much more productive with our time.
No, I totally agree. And I think if we have things down on paper, things will start to become more clear, right? Like this is all very abstract because we haven't done it and we haven't put pen to paper or keys to keyboard or whatever. So we may see some consistencies as we get everybody's thoughts on paper. My
I think we
assumption is that
will.
we will, right?
Yes.
And so it might be helpful to even just see those, not have a discussion prior, but see them, right, in a
That
document.
would be my goal, to send that
So we
out.
can start thinking about that, and I think it will lead to a more productive conversation. I don't have an issue with talking about kind of what we're currently doing. This is just out of left field, so not necessarily what we do on the 27th. I almost want to get in a cadence where if we consistently talk about what we want, the work that we want to do, or whatever comes out of the 27th, I almost want to get in the habit of doing that and doing like a retro. This is my job in my big kid life, like doing a retro and saying how did it work out, where are we, what happened, and doing that, like what can we do better next time on a regular cadence, right? Not necessarily yearly. And so as we start to get kind of these pieces lined up, I think that stuff will come out. So maybe this is that first step in thinking about that and just kind of getting in the habit of doing it.
That all sounds great, Stephanie, truly, yeah. We'll go through the motions, we'll do it, we'll see what we learn from it, how can we do it better, we'll just continue to improve, absolutely. Thanks, that's great.
I just want to add, so as we are sending you suggestions for goals, I think if you see a theme that matches one of the visions, that would be the best vision to talk about, as opposed to just picking one randomly.
Love it.
Just because then it will connect the conversation.
That's great, I
That would
love
be my
that,
suggestion.
that's great,
And I'll send those to you.
thank you. It's all good, we're all juggling a lot. And we have a little bit of time, but I don't know about you, but when I have a deadline, I actually meet the deadline, right? So let's align on a deadline for when we're all going to put those thoughts to paper or to keyboard and email to me so that I can have time to consolidate them, share them back out in preparation for people to think about them before the 27th.
You know, it's a good date, the 20th.
I love that because we were thinking we were going to be
already in the
doing
brain.
the work session at one point on the 20th. Love that, Kelly. Yeah, let's say it by the end of the day on the 20th. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Good. So when looking at the calendar then, go ahead, Dr. Bauer, sorry.
One thing.
Yeah.
So we have confirmed, Stephanie, your question was about the new Thomas Auditorium. The capacity is 900.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. 900 capacity.
What was it before? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
The capacity before was about 1150.
Okay.
The Worthington Kilbourne High School capacity is 750, which has served us really well. But we had lots of discussion about, do you rebuild the capacity at Thomas that you used to have? There are times where that would be nice, a few times a year. But the cost of that from a square footage standpoint was determined that we needed to put those resources into classroom space and other spaces. But we do think 900 will serve us really well for the future at Thomas Worthington.
Great. Thank you. I will just remind everyone that I will not be here for the 23rd, the meeting on the 23rd. I apologize. I will, Kelly, I will review, obviously I'll be in the agenda prep meeting, and I will review the material beforehand. If I think that I have any questions before hearing the presentation, I will share them with you.
Okay.
If you don't mind, and then I'll obviously watch the meeting. And then we have a work session on the 27th, and then our next meeting on the 14th, where we'll talk about that cell phone survey data. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. TJ, would you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Epling-Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this evening.